This is Hampley III from Spiritual Combatants, where we're training soldiers for Christ. I want to thank you for joining me for today's message. This message is on 4 ways love bears all things, and this is a continuation of our video series on 17 characteristics of love, and this is number 12. And so this video series is covering 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 8. So let's jump right into it. So when number 1, where love is patient, it is patient with all things. And so the word bear means to roof over or to cover with silence, to endure patiently, to bear and to suffer. Now, this is different from what we talked about in patience, as far as love being patient in verse 4, because that's talking about being long-spirited and having long patience. So now, where in verse 4, it talks about love is patient as far as time-wise, now it also covers that love is patient with all things. People, places, things, anything. And so the word all things means like all and any, whatsoever, whole, whosoever. So it's all, as I said, all situations, all people, all things. And so now when I look at a situation, I will be able to deal with it for a long period of time, but I'll be able to deal with all things in a long period of time, to be able to endure patiently. But the difference is with the word bear, it means, as I said, to cover with silence. That's a little bit different. When I'm enduring patiently, I'm doing so silently, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But in number 2, this begins to become very important, because complaining does not bring about peace, love, or righteousness. And so when you're in a situation where you're going through something difficult, you're dealing with difficult people, difficult situation, or maybe you want something to happen a little bit faster than what it is right now. You want to hurry up and speed up. You may get to a place where you become unsettled, uneasy, and you want to complain. You start to complain to other people. You begin to just to go off about the situation. But to complain means like to express dissatisfaction, pain, and uneasiness. It's like resentment or grief, to find fault, and to tell of one's pains and ailments, to make a formal accusation. So when you're complaining, this is, even as you're saying, accusing someone of doing something. That's a form of complaining. When I begin to say, hey, you're doing this, I'm expressing my dissatisfaction in something that you have done. And so what I'm doing when I do that, I'm not seeking love. And so in Proverbs 17:9, it says, he that covers a transgression seeketh love, but he that repeateth a matter separates very friends. And so to cover something is to conceal or cover, like to hide, and it's like to flee from it. So when I'm seeking love, when I'm seeking love, now what I'm doing, I'm going to cover that transgression to where I don't remember it, so I don't keep a record of wrong, so I begin to act out, and I don't begin to become easily provoked. So I'm at a place where I'm seeking to hide it, to where now I can walk in peace in my heart, where like, that's the thought of the center of our thoughts and emotions, and so our thoughts and feelings. So now I'm not like kind of acting out in there. Everything is settled here, and it controls what I do also externally. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to seek love, and to seek love is to search out, to strive after, to make inquisition, to procure, to request. And so now that seeking love is intentional. So whereas when I was complaining, I get upset and get increasingly angry and frustrated about something, but instead now I'm going to intentionally find a way to settle my heart, those thoughts and emotions. Remember, sometimes when you begin to think about a matter, and it says here, when I repeat a matter, I separate very friends. And then sometimes you think about every time you consider something that makes you mad. Every time you think about it, sometimes you get angrier and angrier and angrier. I mean, you become dead set. You get dug in, and your anger is just locked in on you, and it's locked on whatever you may be angry about, or whoever you have that anger against, where you're ready to act out against them in a negative manner because you're separating even very friends. But instead, I'm going to seek love. I'm going to seek a way to bring about peace internally, so I can affect what happens externally. And so that's why I want to make sure I settle my heart, because now when I'm seeking love, when I'm seeking to cover that transgression, that's for me too. I'm looking to have peace within my soul. I want the center of my thoughts and feelings to be at peace. I want to walk in peace, and we all want peace. And so, but when we're complaining and we're thinking about these situations in a negative way, our heart begins to get churned up. Our thoughts go all over the place, and now we get to a place or situation where we want to say something or do something that's going to wind up being outside of love, where we may be unseemly and be rude, where we may be easily provoked and act out of anger, where we begin to keep a record of wrongs. And because we keep that record of wrongs, we respond by what's in the record rather than expunging it and clearing out the way so that we can see this relationship clearly and we can begin to forgive others and treat them as if they never wronged us. But we won't do that if we don't seek love and cover that transgression. We will separate people because we're continuing to think about it again and again. And what we have to understand is that complaining doesn't solve our problems. It makes it worse, as I said, because we keep thinking about it again and again. And so what we have to be able to do in Philippians 2:14 and 16, it says, do all things without murmuring and disputing, that you may be blameless and harmless, the sons of God, without rebuke, in the midst of a crooked and perverse nation, among whom ye shine as lights in the world, holding forth the word of life, that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain, neither labored in vain. And so what happens when we begin to murmur and dispute with others? We get to a place where we could be blamed and we will be harmful in our words and in our deeds. And so the people that are in the midst of that perverse and crooked and perverse nation could begin to blame us. They're the ones that's, look, we're in darkness, but now we can see that you're acting just like us and you're in the wrong. Or maybe not, you're not like us, but you're acting in a way that's wrong and that's rude and unseemly. And so now they have a way to blame us and accuse us, acting in a manner that is unseemly and not in love and not being the light in the world. And we begin to act and operate in the midst of darkness and how we thought when we were in darkness. But that's not what we want to do. We want to do all things. You see that? All things. I want to do everything without murmuring or disputing. And so that's even when situations may be uncomfortable, maybe when situations that may not be right. Some people may cheat you out of something, or it seems like something's not going to turn out the way that you want it. All things. And so I have to find a way to patiently endure those things with silence to be able to respond in love. And so in number 3, we'll keep it going. It says, complaining to others does not solve your problems. Praying to God does. And so in 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7, it says, humble yourselves, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time, casting all your cares upon him, for he cares for you. So we have that again, all cares. So if you think about a time when you may complain to a friend. When you complain to them, they may be able to bear your burden and fulfill the law of Christ, as it says in Galatians chapter 6, verses 1 and 2, but that person cannot remove it. And what we do in those situations is that we begin to walk with another person. Let me read that real quick. So in Galatians 6, 1 and 2, it says, brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such a one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. And so if we find someone that has been overtaken in a fault, then we that are spiritual must restore them in the spirit of humility, of meekness, because we have to consider ourselves. Because if we don't come to them with a spirit of meekness, they may begin to accuse us. They may begin to blame us for something that we have done or in our manner that we have come to address them. And they may be, while we come to address them, sometimes you can come to someone really soft and calm, and they're really amped up. So they start saying like, hey, I feel like this, and this is wrong, and this isn't right, and this is wrong, this is wrong. But then if we don't watch ourselves, then we can become easily provoked and begin to speak rudely. And we begin to say things that are rude and unseemly, thinking about ourselves and how we were injured, when all in the entire situation in the beginning, we were going to them to try to help them out, but now we begin to argue with one another. And I know that's happened a lot of times in our situations where we go to someone, we're trying to restore them, But based on something they say, then we take offense at it, and then we begin to argue with them ourselves, and we forget the whole reason why we were going to them in the first place. And we just see just the argument that we have one to another, as opposed to seeking love. But then when I bear their burdens, I'm helping to fulfill the law of Christ. So the law of Christ is to love others, the great commandments, to love God with all their heart, soul, and mind, and to love your brother as yourself. So now what I'm doing is I'm bearing their burdens. I'm helping them carry the load to the place where they can begin to turn back to see God, and they begin to cast all their cares upon Him. So that's our focus. We're going to help walk with them to a place where they turn back to God, to be able to go to Him and to share with Him all of their cares and concerns that's on their hearts and minds. And that's what we want to do. So then, as we begin to cast all our cares upon Him, we're going to wait for God. We're going to wait expectantly for Him. So in Psalm 62, 1 and 2, it says, truly my soul waiteth upon God. From Him cometh my salvation. He only is my rock and salvation. He is my defense. I shall not be greatly moved. And so now, as I'm waiting on Him, I cast all my cares upon Him. I'm going to wait. My soul is going to wait. I'm not going to move. I shall not be greatly moved. I'm going to wait patiently, silently, waiting for Him to answer, because when He do, I wait for Him to deliver. I wait for His answer, because sometimes when we become agitated and want to act out, it's because we want to use our own strength, our own ingenuity, our own connections, our own resources to be able to solve something. What we want to do is wait for Him to respond to us. We want to receive His perspective on something. And so that way, when we're in the midst of the situation, we will know how to properly respond to something. There could be a situation where, say if you sit down, you have this flight. And so now you finally sit down, you get through all the security, everything's going on, you finally sit down on the plane. Somebody comes in, sits behind you, and starts kicking your chair. You've had this long day. You ain't hearing about this. You ain't trying to, you just want some peace. You want to go to sleep. You want to rest and relax. You ain't feeling this. So one of your first inclinations is to turn around and say, hey, stop kicking my chair. But then if you hold and say, you know what, I'm going to endure this silently and patiently. Lord, I'm getting agitated. I can feel it. I can feel my thoughts and feelings are starting to churn in me. Father, I want to give all this to you. I want to cast it all to you. So when you cast it all to Him, what He tells you is that He says, look, this person is not doing this intentionally. What's happening is that they're uncomfortable and they're just trying to get comfortable, and it will stop soon. And so then you have this opportunity to have a different perspective. That's a lot different than what you would have done, because if you had been hasty, you would have missed the mark, and you wind up getting to a place where, again, you become full of blame, or you can be blamed for something, or be harmful in your words or in your deeds. But by sitting back and bearing it and silently enduring it, now God gives you a deeper perspective and insight into what's going on, and helps you respond more clearly, as opposed to lashing out at someone. Instead, I can have a soft answer that turns away wrath, as opposed to coming at people with wrath, and they'll respond with wrath. And sometimes we do that. We may come to someone that's in anger, and they'll respond with anger. Even if they weren't angry in the beginning, they're going to respond in like manner. And so now that we have this soft answer turns away wrath, sometimes you're going to go back and you say, well, you know what? It's not even worth me addressing. Thank you, Lord, for telling me that. So now I'm going to cover the transgression and say, you know what? It's not even worth me even addressing it, because God told me that they needed to get comfortable and that it will stop soon. So now that I covered transgression, I'm seeking love and peace. So now that they can be at peace during their flight, and so can I. And then we can move on with our lives. And so that's what we want to be able to do, and not work all these different situations where we can be, as it says in Philippians 4, 6, and 7, be careful for nothing, but in all things, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let our requests be known unto God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep our hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. And that's where we get that from, where we begin to come to Him first, as opposed to start thinking in our mind and letting our flesh and our heart speak to us about a situation. When we patiently endure in silence and we sit back and we calm our souls so that God can speak to us and give us peace and give us the answer and direction on which we to go. So now, because of that, in Isaiah 26:3 and 4, it says, Isaiah 26:3, it says, thou shalt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusts in thee. So I'm going to trust in you. Lord, I'm in a bad spot right now. I'm feeling some kind of way, but I'm going to give this to you because I want to be in perfect peace. I want to walk in love. And so let us keep in peace and let our trust be in God and keep our minds stayed on him and not turn from that. And so that may be where we begin to walk in and fill our minds with music, with music that keeps our minds focused on him. We're reading the word. We're decreasing our inputs that we receive or that we receive from the world, the entertainment, music, and different things. All those worldly sources, I begin to tone all those things out, tone them down so that I can keep my mind focused on Jesus Christ. And so I'm keeping those things out, because the more that I keep myself in the world and connected to the world, I may be liable to respond just like the world. So, and the last thing here is that love, the number 4, love endures silently. And in James 5:7-8 says, be patient, therefore, brothers, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, being patient about it until it receives the early and later rains. You also be patient, establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is at hand. And so here, again, patient, long-spirited, to bear. So now I'm being patient, and I'm doing that so for waiting for the coming of the Lord. And so what I do it silently. So now when I do it silently, and so now I'm being patient, I'm waiting, just like the farmer. I'm not going to complain about it, because I understand that there's going to be latter rains, and the rains are going to water the fruit, and there's going to grow at certain times, just as we will be able to. And so let me read real quick in Romans 5:1-5. And it says, therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, by whom also we have access by faith into this grace wherein we stand and rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. And not only so, but we glory in tribulation, also knowing that tribulation worketh patience, and patience experience, and experience hope. And hope maketh not ashamed, because the love of God is shed abroad in our hearts by the Holy Ghost, which is given unto us. So when we begin to go through things, it gives us an opportunity to build our patience, as it talks about in James as well. Count it all joy when we go through diverse temptations. And so now when we go through that, we gain experience. We gain experience on how to live as a disciple of Jesus Christ. We learn how to endure patiently and how to walk in love and cover transgressions that most of the time we normally would not do when we are walking our flesh, we wouldn't do, but we learn how to respond like God in love. And so when we do that, we have that, we build the experience that we share with others as we're walking in the Spirit. And then we also build hope, because we understand that situations that we're going through will change at some point, but then also the hope of salvation. And it makes our heart not be ashamed. And hope makes us not ashamed, because now I'm not ashamed in my behavior. I'm not ashamed in my words and my deeds, because the love of God is shed abroad in my heart. And so now I'm looking to walk in love and to be loved, just as we're going through the study. I'm looking to walk it all out, making sure that the center of my thoughts and my feelings are all together in Christ Jesus. And so I pray that you will take some time to review this message. I pray it blessed you. I pray that as you understand that love is also is patient as in time, but it also bears all things. It's like the nouns, people, places, and things, everything that you may go through. And I pray that God will help you to be able to bear all things, so that you may endure patiently with silence, so that you may learn how to respond as God has, and walking in the love that he wants you to walk in. So that as you have peace, there's some situations you will just cover. I'm not going to even address it. It's not even worth me even getting into, Because oftentimes, as you said, separating close friends, you just get yourself mad when there's some situation like, you know what, I'm not going to even deal with that. That's not even worth me addressing. Or if it is necessary to address it, because you're enduring it patiently, you will have a response and you waiting on him as you pour out all those cares and emotions. Give that to God. Pray to God about it. And then as you pray to him, he'll give you the answer so that you can respond in a manner that he would be pleased with, as you continue to shine as a light in the world. So I pray God will bless you. If this message blessed you as well, make sure you share it with your friends, like it as well, and then also subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can receive more messages like this. And until the next time, may God bless you abundantly. God bless.